I've been playing a boatload of Dungeons & Dragons lately, which adds yet another nerdy pastime or interest I have, making it so I get a punch card in the mail that lets me get a free black coffee at any gas station after 9 Yap sessions. I don't even use the card, but having it makes it so I have the title of Turbo Nerd. It's only for the prestige, really. And no, before you ask, you can't use it. I'm a newbie, only played D&D for about a month or two, and had a total of 1 playthrough through Baldur's Gate 3. So I'm totally super duper experienced and have been playing Dungeons & Dragons for decades, practically, with a full wealth of knowledge, knowing everything in every book. And I'll totally never make any inaccurate statements about any information in Dungeons & Dragons. Totally not in this video either. So, I want to talk about the classes that I played, and the subclass I chose, and how cool they are. Hopefully this comes as no surprise to you. This video is full of my opinions for fairly lower level characters. Even though I might talk about the drawbacks that some of these classes have, don't let it dissuade you from trying to play these classes and trying out builds that aren't exactly meta. Dungeons & Dragons isn't about how good your build is, it's about the character you want to play, and the enjoyment you get with playing with your party in either combat or in roleplay. And even if your build sucks and your character dies an early death after you make a horrible decision, falling headfirst into a goblin cave like the fool you are, you can always make another one. I think that if you want to be totally unbothered by silly stats like intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, you should totally go barbarian. In stat buy, you can make it so your strength and constitution are both at least at 16 with a dexterity at a suitable 14. Also, you get to be a lobotomite that your team uses as a mule for medial labor that is a giant stat stick for your team, being a good frontliner, as long as no mind control happens. And apparently in the D&D 1 book that's coming out, Barbarian's kind of getting mega buffed to be better at doing more skills, also performing better in combat late game also. I'd recommend that you play Bear Totem Barbarian. It's always the one I decide to play, mainly because of the great abilities that go with resistances of all damage types except for Psychic. That makes it so you're an early game bully that effectively doubles their health bar for an encounter every time they rage. Barbarians don't really do much besides being a meat shield for their party, only usually playing when there's combat to be had, or for something large to be moved. But being the tank and the wall of meat that your team hides behind is pretty cool. It's like an 8 out of 10 class, not especially versatile though. Usually barbarians are the ones to bring great weapon masters since they're pretty good at two-handing weapons. But just like anything, you could always use the cheat code to pull our master in Sentinel, and maybe even while you're at it, be a bugbear for outrageous reach at 15 feet, making it so your build is a damage-resistant blender, which is a build you can do for all martial classes, if you feel like it. For charisma, constitution, and strength, you get Paladin. Paladin also gets to be a frontline tank, like the Barbarian, while having outrageous burst damage that is characterized by their unique spell, Divine Smite. The difference is that Paladin is usually a huge armor class enjoyer, having a base of 18 armor at the start of the game, if you bring Chainmail and a shield, of course. They can easily be turned into 20 if you bring Shield of Faith and use it as a level 1 spell slot, for when you're about to get in an encounter at the 2nd level and above, with more gear and better heavy armor and upgraded shields, making you hard to hit, all with a really good base health pool. Paladin is my personal favorite class I've played, mainly because of the damage and tankiness that allows Paladin to be a terrifying frontline threat on the battlefield that can soak up damage and counter spells because of the class being a half-caster, while also having some great opportunity for roleplay because of all the charisma that you'll have, with it being one of your more important stats. Paladin is a terrifying frontline threat on the battlefield that can soak up aggro damage and counter spells. For subclass, go ahead and do whatever you want with your character and strive towards, but if gameplay is what you're worried about, go Oath of Vengeance. It has the least obtrusive tenets of all of them, and it just has great channel divinity options and also spells that you get from the subclass. Spells being stuff like Misty Step and Haste. Oh my goodness, Haste. Doubled speed, bonus armor class, advantage on dexterity checks, and gaining an additional action point on top of it? Wow. And just for Paladin, Divine Smites do so much damage, especially when you go and land a crit, doing a nuke's worth of damage against a boss enemy whenever you decide that you want your god to smite down that silly Billy, making Paladin basically the premier tank class of the game, that gets to be a meat shield like Barbarian while also having some beautiful charisma stats and destructive damage, making them a 10 out of 10 class for me. Monks are interesting for being a completely different dexterity and wisdom focused frontline character. And of course you want Constitution. Constitution's just good, you get hell
health. It's good stuff. Monks get their main armor class from Constitution and Wisdom, all while having your Constitution up so you can tank damage while being able to not care about strength really, while Charisma and Intelligence could be other people's forte. The difference is that with Monk, you serve up some knuckle sandwiches with key points to not do as much damage as maybe the highest rolling Paladin Smite or a Battle Master, but what the Monk has is both an amount of attacks that you can pull out more consistently, especially with the volleys that you can put out at lower levels, and the utility that can come with the key points used, with the subclass options that there are. With utility being absolutely obtuse if you're using the right subclasses, which is why I would recommend the Way of the Open Hand, which can knock enemies prone to help the rest of your team with sweet melee advantage rolls, while Stunning Strike, that is allowed to all monks, just allows you to lock down a target. Of course, you have to watch out for things like legendary resistances, but those can even be chopped down to size. They can't do anything if you're trying to stun them twice a turn, and they can't tank the dexterity saving throw. And then after that, they can't do anything because they'll be restrained till the end of your next turn because you use a Stunning Strike. I really like the power fantasy that Monk provides too, of using fist and monk weapons to destroy your enemies, while some other fighting styles give more damage for unarmed attacks, especially at the start of the game, like the fighting style that deals with fists, doing 1d8 bludgeoning damage plus a strength modifier as soon as level 1 or 2, with the monk getting that damage after level 11 with martial arts dice, at the point where you get 11 whole key points and take 20 more feet of movement. Monk kind of suffers from an issue of only being okay throughout the entirety of the game though. Being somebody that's never going to really excel, but somebody that's always going to be constantly just alright. Because once you have enough ki to actually do something every time you fight, your potency kind of wanes. But you do get stuff like only taking quarter damage from fireballs, and I think Monk doing crazy dodges when attack don't land are cool. And that's how I mentally flavor them having an attack miss them. Unlike heavy armored classes that have attacks dink off their armor, or barbarians when they're resistant to the damage that's being sent against them, not even flinching. I say play Monk if you want a fast, dexterous fighter that zips around the battlefield, fighting 4 people at once, while also throwing in some punches like a version of Batman. If that sounds cool to you? Try this class, and I'd probably give it about a 7 out of 10. Fighter's kind of the martial class that lets you do whatever you want, allowing for dexterity or strength, using whatever armor you want, a large range of fighting styles that allow you to excel with any type of martial or simple weapon of your choice, that can make you a straight up menace on the battlefield for damage and for tankiness. Either through heavy armor with strength or with lighter armors with dexterity, the fighter can do whatever physical thing you want a fighter to do. The fighter can be fit for spells or just straight up grow giant if you decide with subclasses, even summoning a spectral version ghost of themselves. The way that fighter is usually played is a one-handed weapon with a shield for some high armor class to make sure you're all souped up and cute. I usually go for a weapon that is two-handed or versatile weapon because large damage dice are silly and make my serotonin levels go all the way up at overwhelming rates. I have played 2 types of fighter, a battle master and a samurai fighter. Battle master allows for you to get the most utility out of your kit that allows the battle master to use maneuvers, which could be things as simple as trying to guarantee an attack landing through using superiority dice, doing more damage, or even taunting an enemy, as well as helping on ability checks. Battlemaster can do so much and play with the entire team and the minutia of it so easily that I think it easily makes it Fighter's best subclass. But if you're going for something a little crazier and not as generally applicable that's only available at higher levels, then I would recommend the Samurai. Samurai Fighter is a class that can get into a ruckus of the fight with the tools of trade that make it so you can send out something like 20 attacks at higher levels because of advantage. Lots of other fun stuff that melds with some crazy feats that can make it so every attack that is put out of this 20 attack flurry lands with advantage, making it so you can fish for crits like it's nothing. Getting at least 1 crit, or multiple if you're a lucky little guy, while getting some bonuses on ability checks, making it the most overpowered at high levels, but kind of underwhelming at lower to mid-level. I think Fighter's pretty much up there 9 out of 10 class. I really like it. But what do you guys think about D&D and the classes I talked about? Was I completely right or completely wrong? And do you have any way to help me? A poor little newbie building a character? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments down below. Till next video, fellas!